Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Michelle Carter, and I'm 32 years old. What I'm about to share with you is the most devastating betrayal I've ever experienced, one that happened on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. This isn't just about a wedding dress. This is about a family that chose favoritism over love, and a sister who tried to steal my entire identity. Picture this, I'm standing in the bridal suite of the Grandview Country Club, my hands shaking as I stare at an empty dress bag. The bag that should contain my grandmother's vintage lace wedding dress, the one I'd dreamed of wearing since I was 7 years old. The dress that cost me 3 months of savings to have perfectly altered. The dress that was supposed to make me feel like a princess on my wedding day. Instead, I'm looking at nothing but empty satin lining. "Mom!" I screamed, my voice cracking like glass. "Where is my dress?" The silence that followed was deafening. My bridesmaids, my best friend Jessica, my cousin Amanda, and my college roommate Michelle, all froze like statues. You could hear a pin drop in that room, which seconds before had been filled with laughter and champagne giggles. My mother, Patricia Carter, walked in wearing her navy blue mother of the bride dress, and I knew immediately from her face that something was terribly wrong. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she had that guilty expression she used to wear when I'd catch her giving Emma, my younger sister, the bigger piece of cake. "Sarah, honey," she began, wringing her hands, "there's been a situation." "What kind of situation?" My voice was rising to a pitch that probably scared small animals. "Mom, my wedding starts in 45 minutes, and my dress is gone." That's when Jessica, bless her heart, spoke up. "Mrs. Carter, where's Sarah's dress? We've looked everywhere." My mother took a deep breath, and what came out of her mouth next will haunt me for the rest of my life. "Emma needed something special to wear today. She's been so depressed since her breakup with Tyler, and when she saw your dress hanging there this morning, she needed it more than you do right now." The world stopped spinning. I'm not being dramatic, it literally felt like the earth ceased its rotation. My brain couldn't process what I'd just heard. "She needed it more than I do?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Mom, this is my wedding day. My dress." "What do you mean she needed it more?" "Well," Mom continued, and I could see her trying to justify the unjustifiable, "Emma is going through such a hard time, and you have David now. You have happiness. Emma has nothing," and seeing her in that dress, Sarah, she looked so beautiful, so confident for the first time in months. I felt like I was drowning. The room was spinning, and I had to grip the back of a chair to keep from falling over. "Are you telling me that my sister is currently wearing my wedding dress? The dress I'm supposed to walk down the aisle in?" She's actually downstairs in the chapel already," Mom said, and her voice got smaller with each word. "She wanted to surprise you. She thought maybe you two could share the spotlight today. Like co-brides. Wouldn't that be special? Co-brides. CO brides. At my own wedding." Jessica's champagne glass hit the floor and shattered, which somehow seemed like the perfect soundtrack to my life imploding. Amanda gasped so loudly it echoed off the walls. Michelle just stared at my mother like she'd grown a second head. "But me?" I started laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind of laughter that comes right before a complete mental breakdown. The kind that makes people call for medical professionals. "You let Emma wear my wedding dress," I said between these horrible, hollow laughs, "and now she wants to be a co-bride at my wedding. The wedding I've been planning for 18 months. The wedding David and I are paying for. The wedding that's supposed to celebrate our love." "Sarah, please don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" The word exploded out of me like a gunshot. I'm being dramatic? Mom, in what universe is this okay? In what world does the bride's sister get to wear the bride's dress and pretend to be a bride herself? That's when Jessica, my ride-or-die best friend since high school, stepped forward. Mrs. Carter, with all due respect, this is insane. Sarah has been planning this wedding for over a year. This is her day. My mother's face hardened in that way it always did when someone questioned her decisions about Emma. Emma is fragile right now, Jessica. She needs support from her family. Sarah has always been the strong one, the successful one. She can handle sharing her special day. Sharing my special day. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, my hair perfectly curled, my makeup flawless, wearing nothing but my white silk robe because my dress was on another woman downstairs. A woman who was planning to walk into my wedding ceremony and stand next to me at the altar? Hold David's other hand while I said my vows? Where is she? I asked, my voice suddenly calm in that scary way that happens right before someone completely loses it. Sarah, please don't make a scene. Where is she? She's in the chapel with the wedding guests, taking pictures with David's family. Taking pictures with my husband-to-be's family. In my dress. That's when I realized that this wasn't just about a dress. This wasn't even about favoritism, though God knows I dealt with that my entire life. This was about Emma trying to literally insert herself into my marriage, my relationship, my entire life. And my mother was helping her do it. I walked to the window overlooking the chapel entrance and looked down. There, posing for photos with David's grandmother, was my 28-year-old sister Emma. She was wearing my dress, the ivory lace with the delicate pearl buttons, the cathedral-length train I'd dreamed about since childhood, the dress that had belonged to my grandmother Carter before she passed away 5 years ago. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that she looked beautiful. Radiant, even. She was glowing in a way I'd never seen before, holding the bouquet of white roses and baby's breath that was supposed to be mine, accepting congratulations from my wedding guests. And David, oh God, David was nowhere to be seen. Where's my fiancé? I asked, my voice barely audible. My mother shifted uncomfortably. He's talking with Emma right now. In the groom's ready room. They needed to discuss the ceremony changes. Ceremony changes. What ceremony changes? But even as I asked, I already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. Well, since Emma is participating now, the officiant needed to adjust the vows in. I didn't hear the rest. My ears were ringing, and black spots were dancing at the edges of my vision. My legs gave out, and I sank into the velvet chair behind me. This was really happening. My sister had taken my dress, convinced my mother it was okay, and was now downstairs rearranging my wedding to include herself. And my fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry in 37 minutes, was somewhere discussing how to accommodate this insanity. Jessica knelt beside me, her hand on my shoulder. Sarah, we're calling this off. This is beyond messed up. We're getting you out of here right now. But I couldn't move. I couldn't think. All I could do was stare at that empty dress bag and wonder how my life had become a nightmare. That's when Amanda spoke up from the window. Sarah? You need to see this. I forced myself to stand and look down at the chapel entrance again. Emma was now holding court with a small crowd of guests, and she was actually holding up her left hand, showing off what looked like a ring. A ring I didn't recognize. Is that? Michelle whispered. I pressed my face against the glass, my breath fogging the window. The ring on Emma's finger caught the sunlight, sparkling like a diamond. Like an engagement ring. That's not possible, I breathed. She just broke up with Tyler 3 weeks ago. But there it was, clear as day. My sister, wearing my dress, holding my bouquet, now sporting what appeared to be an engagement ring, surrounded by my wedding guests who seemed to be celebrating her as much as they were supposed to be celebrating me. My mother's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went white. What? I demanded. What now? It's a text from Emma. Mom's voice was shaking. She says she has something important to announce during the ceremony. She wants to make it a double celebration. A double celebration. I'm pretty sure that's when my soul left my body. Because there's only one announcement a woman makes while wearing a wedding dress and showing off a new engagement ring. My sister wasn't just trying to be a co-bride at my wedding. She was planning to announce her own engagement. At my wedding. In my dress. And I had exactly 34 minutes to figure out how to stop her from destroying everything I'd ever dreamed of. Let me take you back to understand how we got here, because this betrayal didn't happen overnight. It was 32 years in the making. Emma Rose Carter was born 4 years after me, and from the moment she took her first breath, she became the center of our family's universe. I'm not exaggerating, I have the photo albums to prove it. Page after page of Emma's first smile, first steps, first words, while my own milestones got shoved in the back like forgotten footnotes. Growing up, I learned that love in the Carter household was conditional, and Emma had cornered the market on conditions. I remember being 8 years old, standing in our kitchen after school, bursting with excitement because I'd made the honor roll for the 3rd straight semester. I was clutching that certificate like it was made of gold, practically vibrating with pride. Mom! Mom, look! I'd shouted, waving the paper in the air. I got straight A's again. But Mom was on her hands and knees, cleaning up finger paints that 4-year-old Emma had smeared across the white kitchen cabinets. Emma stood there, paint-covered and grinning, while Mom frantically scrubbed. That's nice, Sarah, Mom said without looking up. Can you help me clean this up? Your sister is so creative, but she doesn't understand about making messes yet. Even at 8, I knew something was wrong with that sentence. Emma was 4, not 1. She knew exactly what a mess was. But I helped clean up anyway, stuffing my honor roll certificate into my backpack where it stayed, unacknowledged and uncelebrated. That was my childhood in a nutshell, me achieving, Emma creating chaos, and Mom making excuses for why Emma's needs always came first. It got worse as we got older. When I was 16 and working part-time at the local bookstore to save for college, Emma would throw tantrums about not having the latest designer jeans or concert tickets. Without fail, Mom would come to my room with that same guilty expression I'd see years later in the bridal suite. Sarah, honey, you know how Emma gets when she feels left out. Could you help pay for her concert ticket? She's been so sad lately, and music really helps her express herself. Express herself. That was always the excuse. Emma needed to express herself, needed to find herself, needed to feel supported in her journey of self-discovery. Meanwhile, I needed to be mature, responsible, and understanding of my sister's delicate emotional state. The thing is, I bought into it. I genuinely believed that Emma was more fragile than me, that she needed extra care and attention. I convinced myself that being the strong, reliable daughter was its own form of specialness. I was proud of being the one Mom could count on. Looking back now, I realize I was just easier to manipulate. High school was a masterclass in Emma's ability to steal my thunder. When I got accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship, Emma chose that same week to have a crisis about her sophomore year grades. Suddenly, all family conversations revolved around getting Emma a tutor, switching her to easier classes, and making sure she didn't feel bad about herself compared to her academically gifted sister. I learned not to share my victories at home. My college acceptance letter got a distracted "that's wonderful, honey," while Emma's C+ in algebra got a celebration dinner. But it wasn't just academics. Emma had this uncanny ability to sense when I was happy about something and find a way to eclipse it. When I started dating Mark Stevens' junior year, my first real boyfriend, Emma suddenly developed a crush on his best friend and needed constant advice about boys. Family dinners became Emma consulting sessions about her love life while I sat there, invisible. When Mark and I broke up right before prom, I was devastated. I remember crying in my room, and Emma knocked on my door with what I thought was genuine concern. "Sarah? I heard about Mark. Are you okay?" "Not really," I sniffled. I really thought he cared about me." Emma sat on my bed and rubbed my back. "He's an idiot for letting you go. You deserve so much better." It felt like the first time my sister had truly seen my pain. For a moment, I thought we were having a real sister moment. Then she said, "Actually, this might work out perfectly. Jake Morrison asked me to prom, but I wasn't sure if it would be weird since you and Mark were going together. Now we can both go and have the best time." She was already planning her perfect prom night before my tears had even dried. That was Emma in a nutshell. She could turn my heartbreak into her opportunity without even realizing she was doing it. College was my escape. For 4 years, I was just Sarah, not Emma's older sister, not the responsible one, not the one who had to make sacrifices for family harmony. I made friends who valued my opinions, dated guys who thought I was interesting, and excelled in my communications major without having to downplay my success. I thought distance had changed our family dynamics. When I came home for visits, Emma seemed more mature, less attention-seeking. She was working at a local boutique and dating a guy named Ryan who seemed nice enough. For the first time in years, our family dinners felt balanced. I was naive enough to believe that we'd all grown up. Then I met David. David Christopher Hayes walked into my life during my second year working at the marketing firm in Chicago. He was consulting for one of our biggest clients, and the first time he smiled at me across that conference room table, I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. He was everything I'd dreamed of in a partner: kind but not a pushover, successful but not arrogant, funny without being cruel. He made me feel like I was the most fascinating woman in the room, not because he ignored other people, but because he genuinely found me captivating. For the first time in my life, I was someone's first choice. We dated for 2 years before he proposed, and they were the happiest 2 years of my life. David loved my ambition, celebrated my successes, and never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. When I got promoted to senior account manager, he took me out for dinner at the fanciest restaurant in the city. When I was stressed about a difficult client, he'd bring me tea and sit quietly while I worked through solutions out loud. He loved me for exactly who I was. The proposal was perfect, private, heartfelt, everything I'd ever wanted. He took me to the botanical gardens where we had our first official date, got down on one knee beside the rose garden, and asked me to be his wife with tears in his eyes. I called my family immediately after saying yes, breathless with joy. "Mom! David proposed! We're engaged!" "Oh, Sarah! That's wonderful news." And for once, She sounded genuinely happy for me. Emma's going to be so excited. She adores David. That should have been my first warning sign. Emma did adore David. From the moment I brought him home for Thanksgiving, she'd been attentive. Asking him about his work, laughing a little too loud at his jokes, finding excuses to touch his arm when she talked to him. I told myself I was being paranoid, that Emma was just being friendly. But there were moments that made me uncomfortable. Like when she insisted on sitting next to him at dinner, or when she texted him directly instead of going through me to ask about our weekend plans. Once, I walked into the kitchen and found them talking quietly by the coffee maker, their heads close together, and they both jumped apart when they saw me. "What were you guys talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Oh, just wedding stuff," Emma said quickly. "David was asking about flowers, and I was giving him some ideas for surprising you." It seemed innocent enough, but something about the way they jumped apart bothered me. I brushed it off. I was happy, David loved me, and we were planning our dream wedding. What could go wrong? The wedding planning process should have been another red flag parade. Every decision became a family committee, with Emma somehow positioned as my mother's co-consultant. "What do you think about this venue?" I'd ask, showing Mom pictures of the country club. "It's beautiful," Mom would say, "but let's see what Emma thinks. She has such a good eye for these things." Emma always had opinions. The flowers I chose were a little basic. The menu needed more personality. The band I loved was kind of old-fashioned. She never directly criticized my choices, but she had this way of making suggestions that slowly chipped away at my confidence. "You know what might be gorgeous?" she'd say. "If you added some gold accents to the ivory theme. It would make everything pop. The dress you picked is so classic," she'd comment, "but have you considered something with more lace? Lace is so romantic." Bit by bit, my wedding plans started incorporating Emma's suggestions. It was easier than arguing, and I told myself that she was just trying to help. The dress fitting 3 months before the wedding was when I should have seen the writing on the wall. Emma insisted on coming with Mom and me, claiming she wanted to help me feel beautiful on my special day. When I stepped out of the dressing room in my grandmother's altered dress, Mom started crying. "Oh, Sarah. You look just like Grandma Carter did in her wedding photos." I felt like a princess. The dress fit perfectly, the lace was stunning, and for the first time in months, I felt completely confident about my wedding day look. Then Emma spoke up from the corner chair where she'd been sitting quietly. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "But Sarah, can I be honest about something?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "The dress is gorgeous, but it kind of washes you out. Your skin tone is so different from Grandma's. I think you need something with more warmth to really make you glow." I looked back at my reflection, and suddenly all I could see were the ways the dress didn't work. Was my skin too pale? Did I look washed out? Mom was frowning now, studying me critically. "Maybe Emma has a point," Mom said slowly. "The dress is beautiful, but maybe we should look at some other options?" Emma finished. "I've been researching bridal shops, and there are some amazing designers who could create something perfect for your coloring." I ended up keeping the dress. It had been my grandmother's, and I couldn't bear to abandon it completely. But Emma's words had planted seeds of doubt that grew every time I looked at it. Looking back now, I realized that was the first time Emma had actively tried to undermine my confidence about the wedding. It wouldn't be the last. The bachelor and bachelorette parties were 3 weeks ago, and that's when everything started unraveling in ways I'm only beginning to understand. Emma threw me a bachelorette party that was not what I wanted. I'd asked for something low-key, maybe a spa day with my closest friends, followed by dinner. Instead, Emma organized a bar crawl through downtown Chicago with 20 women, half of whom I barely knew. I wanted to make sure everyone who loves you could celebrate, she explained when I saw the guest list. The night was a blur of loud music, too much alcohol, and Emma being the center of attention as the amazing sister who planned everything. I spent most of the evening making sure drunk acquaintances didn't get lost or arrested, while Emma regaled my college friends with stories about our childhood that made me sound uptight and her sound spontaneous and fun. But the weirdest part was when Jessica pulled me aside around midnight. "Sarah, did you know Emma invited some of David's friends to join us for the last bar?" "What?" "No, that's not how bachelorette parties work." "That's what I thought. But she said you'd approve because you wanted it to be a modern, inclusive celebration." I found Emma at the bar, laughing with 3 guys I recognized from David's birthday party, including his cousin Mike and his coworker James. "Emma, what are they doing here?" "I thought it would be fun. You always say you hate how weddings are so gendered and traditional. This is more like a joint celebration." I was too tired and tipsy to argue, but something felt off. Emma was being touchy with Mike, laughing at everything he said, and she kept taking selfies with the group and posting them immediately to social media. The next morning, David mentioned seeing the photos online. "Looks like you had fun last night," he said, and there was something weird in his tone. "Yeah, though it wasn't really what I expected." "Emma invited some of your friends." "I saw that." Mike said Emma was really friendly. There was something he wasn't saying, but I was too hungover and stressed to push. Now, standing in this bridal suite with my dress missing and my sister downstairs playing bride with my wedding guests, all those little moments are clicking into place like puzzle pieces. Emma's constant suggestions that slowly changed my wedding plans. Her comments designed to make me doubt my choices. Her insistence on being involved in every detail. The way she'd been watching David at family gatherings. Her sudden depression after her breakup with Tyler, which coincidentally happened right after David and I sent out wedding invitations. And now this. The ultimate theft. Not just my dress, not just my spotlight, but my entire wedding day. My phone buzzed with a text message. Jessica held it up for me to see. It was from David. "Sarah, we need to talk. Can you come downstairs?" My hands were shaking as I typed back, "Is everything okay?" His response made my blood run cold. "Emma told me something that changes everything. We need to figure this out before the ceremony." Changes everything. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, still in my silk robe, my perfect wedding day hair and makeup now seeming like costume pieces for a play I was no longer starring in. Whatever Emma had told David, whatever lie she'd spun or revelation she'd shared, it was big enough to make my fiancé question our wedding 30 minutes before we were supposed to say I do. And I was about to find out that the betrayal ran deeper than I ever could have imagined. I don't remember walking down the stairs to the groom's ready room. One moment I was staring at David's text message, and the next I was standing outside a heavy oak door, my hand trembling as I reached for the brass handle. Through the door, I could hear voices, David's familiar baritone and Emma's higher pitch, though I couldn't make out the words. My stomach churned as I pressed my ear against the wood, trying to catch fragments of their conversation. "Can't believe she didn't tell you. This changes everything. Thought you knew about." I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked sharply and pushed the door open before anyone could respond. David was sitting in a leather armchair, his head in his hands, still wearing his tuxedo pants but only an undershirt on top. His bow tie hung loose around his neck like a symbol of surrender. Emma sat across from him on a small sofa, wearing my grandmother's wedding dress, looking like she belonged there. When they both looked up at me, I saw guilt written across both their faces, but it was different kinds of guilt. David looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Emma looked like she'd been caught with her hand in the cookie jar but was already planning her excuse. "Sarah," David said, standing up quickly. "We need to talk." "Yes," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I think we do. Starting with why my sister is wearing my wedding dress and apparently has announcement plans for my ceremony." Emma stood up too, and I had to bite back a gasp. She looked stunning in the dress, it fit her perfectly, which was impossible since we weren't the same size. She was curvier than me, taller by 2 inches. The dress should have been all wrong on her. But it wasn't. It was like it had been made for her. "Sarah, please sit down," Emma said softly. "There are things you need to know. Things I should have told you a long time ago." "The only thing I need to know," I said, remaining standing, "is why you're wearing my dress and what you told my fiancé that supposedly changes everything." David and Emma exchanged a look, and that look sent ice through my veins. It was intimate. Familiar. The kind of look people share when they've been keeping secrets together. "Maybe I should start," Emma said, smoothing down the skirt of my dress. "Sarah, I know how this looks, but I need you to hear me out. You have 60 seconds before I call security and have you removed from my wedding," I said, crossing my arms. Emma took a deep breath, and what came out of her mouth was the last thing I expected to hear. "The dress was never yours." The room spun. "What?" "Grandma Carter's wedding dress. It was never meant for you, Sarah. Grandma left it to me in her will." I felt like I'd been slapped. "That's impossible. Mom gave it to me when David and I got engaged. She said Grandma wanted the eldest granddaughter to wear it." "Mom lied." Emma's voice was gentle but firm. "Grandma left the dress to me specifically, along with a letter explaining why. She said I reminded her most of herself when she was young, romantic, artistic, someone who believed in true love above everything else." "You're lying." But even as I said it, doubt was creeping in. Why would Emma make up something so easily verified? "I have the will," Emma said quietly. "And the letter. I brought them with me today because I knew this moment would come eventually." She reached into a small white purse, my bridal purse, I realized with fresh outrage, and pulled out 2 folded documents. She handed them to David first, not to me. "David, would you please read the relevant section out loud? Sarah might think I'm making it up if it comes from me." David unfolded the papers with shaking hands. His voice was barely a whisper as he read. "To my beloved granddaughter Emma Rose Carter, I leave my wedding dress and all associated jewelry, as she has shown the greatest appreciation for beauty and romance throughout her young life. I believe she will honor the dress's legacy of love when her time comes." The words hit me like physical blows. When did you find out about this?" 3 years ago, when I was helping Mom clean out Grandma's attic. The will and the letter were in a box with the dress. Mom begged me not to tell you because you'd always talked about wearing it someday. So you just let me plan my entire wedding around a lie?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I tried to find ways to bring it up, Sarah. I really did. But every time I started to mention it, you'd get so excited talking about the dress, about feeling connected to Grandma's memory. I didn't want to hurt you. I turned to David, desperate for him to make sense of this insanity. Did you know about this? I found out 20 minutes ago, he said quietly. Emma showed me the documents right before you came in. And that's what changes everything? Address inheritance dispute? David and Emma exchanged that look again, and my blood pressure spiked. There's more, Emma said quietly. Of course there was more. Tell me, I said, my voice flat. Emma took another deep breath. Sarah, Tyler and I didn't break up 3 weeks ago. We broke up 6 months ago. I've been seeing someone else. Congratulations. What does that have to do with my wedding day? The someone else is. She glanced at David, and he nodded encouragingly. It's complicated. Stop being cryptic and tell me what's going on. Sarah, David said gently, maybe you should sit down. I'm not sitting down. I'm standing here in a bathrobe while my sister wears my wedding dress, apparently her wedding dress, and you two are having some sort of secret conversation that's making you both look like you've seen a ghost. What is happening? Emma stood up, walked over to me, and took my hands. Hers were surprisingly steady while mine shook like leaves. Sarah, I'm pregnant. The world tilted. What? I'm 12 weeks pregnant. That's why the dress fits me so perfectly now. I've gained weight in all the right places. That's why I've been emotional and distant lately. And that's why I need to make an announcement today. I pulled my hands away from hers. You want to announce your pregnancy at my wedding? Not just the pregnancy, Emma said softly. The engagement too. The father proposed yesterday when I told him about the baby. My brain was struggling to process this information. Wait, if you're 12 weeks pregnant, that means you got pregnant 3 months ago. But you were still with Tyler 3 months ago. Emma's face crumpled. No, Sarah. I wasn't with Tyler. I've been lying about when we broke up because I didn't know how to tell you the truth. Which is? The baby's father is someone you know. Someone close to you. And I know you're going to hate me for this, but Sarah, I love him. I love him more than I've ever loved anyone, and he loves me too. The room was spinning faster now. Pieces were clicking together in my mind, forming a picture I desperately didn't want to see. Emma, I whispered, who is the father? She looked at David, and he nodded again. Like he was giving her permission to destroy my life. It's Marcus, she said quietly. Marcus. David's brother. David's best man. The man who was supposed to be standing at the altar with my fiancé in 25 minutes. I sat down hard in the nearest chair. Marcus. Sarah, it just happened. We didn't plan it, we fought it for months, but sometimes you can't help who you fall in love with. You're in love with my fiancé's brother. Yes. And you're pregnant with his baby. Yes. And he proposed to you yesterday. Yes. I looked at David, who was watching me with something that looked like pity. Did you know? I suspected something was going on between them. Marcus has been different lately. Distracted. Happy in a way I hadn't seen since his divorce. But I didn't know about the pregnancy or the engagement until Emma told me just now. And you're okay with this? Your brother getting your sister-in-law pregnant while she's supposedly dating someone else? Emma won't be my sister-in-law after today, David said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Sarah, David continued, Emma told me something else. Something about you that I need to understand. My heart stopped beating. What about me? Emma reached into the purse again and pulled out her phone. Sarah, I know this is going to hurt, but I can't let David marry you without knowing the truth. She handed him the phone, and David stared at the screen for a long moment before looking up at me with confusion and hurt. Sarah, Emma showed me text messages. Messages between you and your ex-boyfriend Jake from college. From last month. My blood turned to ice water. What text messages? The ones where you tell him you're not sure about marrying me. Where you say you still have feelings for him. Where you... David's voice broke. Where you say you're only marrying me because I'm safe and stable, but Jake was your real love. I lunged for the phone, but Emma pulled it back. That's not... David, I never sent those messages. I haven't talked to Jake in 3 years. The messages are from your phone number, Emma said sadly. I saw them when your phone was buzzing during dinner last week, and the preview showed Jake's name. I was worried about you, so I looked. You went through my phone? I was concerned. And Sarah, I found more than just the messages to Jake. There were conversations with other ex-boyfriends too. Mark from high school. That guy Ryan from your first job. You've been reaching out to all of them, telling them you're having second thoughts about the wedding. David was looking at me like I was a stranger. Is this true, Sarah? No. David, I swear to you, I never sent those messages. I would never. I stopped mid-sentence as a horrible realization hit me. Emma had access to my phone. I'd given her my passcode months ago when she'd borrowed it to call Mom during one of our wedding planning sessions. Emma, who knew all my ex-boyfriends' names from years of family stories. Emma, who was tech-savvy enough to create fake conversations. Emma, I said slowly, you created those messages. Her face remained perfectly innocent. Sarah, that's a serious accusation. Why would I do something like that? Because you wanted David to doubt me. You wanted to sabotage my wedding. Sarah, I understand you're upset, but accusing me of... Show me the phone, I demanded, reaching for it again. This time David intercepted my hand. Sarah, stop. I've seen the messages. They're clearly from your number. Anyone can fake text messages these days. David, you know me. Do you really think I would tell my ex-boyfriend that I'm settling for you? That you're just safe and boring compared to him? David's face crumpled. I don't know what to think anymore. That's when I realized the true genius of Emma's manipulation. She hadn't just stolen my dress or tried to upstage my wedding. She had systematically destroyed David's faith in me, in our relationship, in everything we built together. And she'd done it using my own insecurities against me. David, I said desperately, remember what I told you about my family? About how Emma has always been the favorite. About how I've spent my whole life competing for attention. Sarah, please don't drag family drama into this. This is family drama. David, Emma is lying. About the messages, about the dress, probably about the pregnancy too. I'm not lying about the pregnancy, Emma said quietly. I can prove that right now. She reached into the purse again and pulled out a folded paper. A sonogram photo. 12 weeks and 3 days, she said, handing it to David. Due in February. Marcus has already seen it. David stared at the ultrasound image, and I could see him doing math in his head. 12 weeks and 3 days would put the conception right around the time of Emma's supposed breakup with Tyler. Right around the time she'd been spending more time at family gatherings where Marcus was present as David's brother. This still doesn't prove anything about the text messages, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. Emma's expression shifted then, and for just a moment, I saw something cold and calculating in her eyes. Something I'd never noticed before, or maybe had never allowed myself to see. "Sarah," she said softly, "do you really want to do this? Do you really want to force David to choose between believing his fiancée or his future sister-in-law? Because I have more than just text messages." "What do you mean?" She pulled out her own phone and opened the photo gallery. "I've been documenting things for months, Sarah. Just in case this day came and I needed to protect the people I love." She swiped through several photos, then handed the phone to David. His face went white as he looked at the screen. "What is it?" I demanded. "It's..." David's voice was barely audible. "It's a photo of you. With Jake. Last month." "That's impossible." David turned the phone toward me, and I saw myself sitting across from a man at a coffee shop. The man had dark hair and was wearing a blue button-down shirt. From the back, he could have been Jake. But I'd never met with Jake. I hadn't even seen him since college. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "I was downtown shopping for wedding decorations," Emma said. "I saw you through the window of that little cafe on State Street. You looked upset, and you were holding hands with him across the table. I was worried about you, so I took a picture to show Mom later, to see if we should reach out and make sure you were okay." I stared at the photo, my mind racing. I remembered that day. I'd been meeting with a client, a new account I'd been trying to land for months. The man in the photo wasn't Jake at all. It was Thomas Mitchell, the marketing director for a tech startup. But from the back, from this angle, with Emma's story planted in David's mind, it could look like an intimate meeting with an ex-boyfriend. "David, that's Thomas Mitchell from Syntech Solutions. I was meeting with him about their account. I told you about that meeting, how I was nervous because it was such a big potential client." "You never mentioned meeting with him at a cafe," David said slowly. "Because we met at their offices first, but their conference room was being renovated, so we moved to the cafe down the street to finish our conversation." "David, you can call my office. Check my calendar. Check the client files." But I could see the doubt in his eyes. Emma's seeds of suspicion had taken root, and now every innocent explanation sounded like a lie. "There's more," Emma said quietly. Of course there was. She swiped to another photo. This one showed me outside a restaurant, hugging a man goodbye. Again, from the back, the man could have been anyone. But Emma's narrative was already written. This was 2 weeks ago. You told David you were working late, but you were actually having dinner with this man. And Sarah. She paused dramatically. You kissed him goodbye. I did remember this. It was my old college friend Michael, who was in town for business. We had dinner to catch up, and yes, I'd hugged him goodbye. But a kiss? Never. Emma, you're lying. That was Michael Torres, my friend from college. We had dinner because he was visiting Chicago. It was completely innocent. Then why didn't you tell David about it? The question hung in the air like poison gas. Why hadn't I told David? Because it didn't seem important. Because Michael and I were just friends. Because I'd been busy with wedding planning and work stress and hadn't thought to mention a casual dinner with an old friend. But now, in this context, my silence looked suspicious. David, I said desperately, you have to believe me. Emma is twisting innocent situations to make them look like something they're not. She has access to my phone, she knows my schedule, she's been planning this. Why would Emma want to ruin your wedding? David asked, and I could hear that he was wavering. Because she's in love with you. The words came out before I could stop them. Emma's face went scarlet, and David stepped backward like I'd struck him. What? She's been in love with you since the day I brought you home, I continued, the pieces finally clicking into place in my mind. The pregnancy story, the engagement to Marcus, it's all a cover. She doesn't want me to marry you because she wants you for herself. Sarah, that's insane, Emma said, but her voice was shaky now. Is it? You've been at every family gathering, asking David questions, sitting next to him, finding excuses to touch him. You've been involved in every wedding planning decision, slowly changing things to your taste instead of mine. You insisted on being part of the bachelor party planning, and somehow David's friends ended up at my bachelorette party. I was gaining momentum, the pattern becoming clearer with every word. You've been inserting yourself into our relationship for months, Emma. And when that wasn't working fast enough, you decided to destroy my relationship with David by making him think I was cheating. That's not true. Emma protested, but she was backing toward the door. Then prove it. Call Marcus right now and put him on speaker. Let him tell David about your engagement and pregnancy. Emma's face went white. He's getting ready for the ceremony. Then text him. Ask him to come down here right now to celebrate your engagement with his brother. Sarah, this is ridiculous. Do it. Emma fumbled with her phone, her hands shaking now. She typed something quickly and hit send. We all stared at her phone, waiting for a response. After 2 minutes of silence, David spoke up. What did you text him? I asked him to come to the groom's ready room. Show me the message. Emma hesitated, then handed David her phone. He read the screen and his expression darkened. Emma, this message says if you love me, you'll come to the groom's room right now. That's not asking him to celebrate your engagement. That sounds like you're asking him to help you with something. I was nervous about how to word it. And why is his contact name M instead of Marcus or fiancé or something that indicates you're engaged to him? Emma was trapped, and she knew it. Her carefully constructed web of lies was unraveling, and there was nowhere left to hide. That's when the door opened, and Marcus walked in. He was dressed in his groomsman tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, looking like he was ready to stand up at his brother's wedding. He looked confused and concerned, but not like a man who was about to celebrate his own engagement. Emma? Is everything okay? Your text sounded urgent. He looked around the room, taking in the scene, me in my bathrobe, David looking devastated, Emma in a wedding dress. What's going on? Marcus, David said slowly, Emma says you two are engaged. And that she's pregnant with your baby. The confusion on Marcus's face was genuine and complete. What? Emma, what are you talking about? Emma's composure finally cracked. Marcus, please. Just play along. For me. Play along with what? Emma, I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. Not since you asked me to meet you for coffee and told me you had feelings for me, and I explained that I wasn't interested in dating my brother's future sister-in-law. The room fell silent except for the sound of Emma's shaky breathing. You turned her down, David said quietly. Of course I turned her down. Emma, I thought I made it clear that nothing could happen between us. I'm sorry if I misled you somehow, but... You didn't mislead me, Emma whispered. I thought if I could make Sarah look bad enough, maybe David would call off the wedding, and then maybe you'd reconsider, and... She trailed off, realizing that she'd just confessed to everything. David was staring at his brother, then at Emma, then at me. So there's no pregnancy? Emma's voice was barely audible. I borrowed the sonogram photo from a friend who just had a baby. I thought it would make the story more believable. And the text messages from Sarah's phone? I created them. I'm sorry, Sarah. I couldn't stand watching you have everything I wanted. The confession hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Emma had systematically tried to destroy my relationship, steal my wedding day, and manipulate everyone in the room to get what she wanted. And she'd almost succeeded. David sank into his chair, his head in his hands. Emma, how could you do this? Because I love you, she cried, the words exploding out of her like a dam bursting. I've loved you since the moment Sarah brought you home, and I've watched you two be happy together while I've been miserable and alone, and I just wanted one thing that Sarah had. Just one thing. So you tried to destroy her life to get it. Emma was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, the wedding dress, my grandmother's dress, crumpled around her as she collapsed into sobs. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted someone to choose me first for once. And despite everything, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, I felt a stab of sympathy for my sister. Because I understood what it felt like to always come second, to always be overlooked, to always wonder what was wrong with you that you couldn't be someone's first choice. But then I looked at David, saw the hurt and confusion in his eyes, and my sympathy hardened into something else. Emma had almost destroyed the best thing in my life because she was jealous. She had weaponized my own insecurities and family dynamics against me. She had stolen my wedding day and tried to make it about her own twisted fantasy. And she had done it all while wearing my grandmother's wedding dress. Get out, I said quietly. Sarah. Get out! I screamed, my voice echoing off the walls. Take off my dress and get out of my wedding. Emma looked around the room desperately, but there was no support coming. Marcus looked disgusted. David looked heartbroken. Even she seemed to realize that she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I don't have anything else to wear, she whispered. I walked to the closet in the corner of the room and grabbed a spare groomsman shirt and a pair of David's backup pants. I threw them at her feet. Figure it out. Emma gathered the clothes and fled to the bathroom to change. The three of us stood in awkward silence until she emerged 5 minutes later in ill-fitting men's clothes, carrying my grandmother's dress like a flag of surrender. She handed it to me without meeting my eyes. For what it's worth, she said quietly, you look beautiful without the dress. You always have. I was just too jealous to see it. Then she was gone, leaving behind the wreckage of what should have been the happiest day of my life. David and I stared at each other across the room. My fiancé, who 30 minutes ago had been ready to call off our wedding because he thought I was cheating on him. David, I said softly, Do you believe me now? He was quiet for a long moment, processing everything that had just happened. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. I should have known that Emma was manipulating the situation. But you didn't. No, I didn't. And I don't know what that says about us, about me, about our relationship. My heart clenched. What do you mean? I mean that when presented with evidence that you were cheating, my first instinct wasn't to defend you or ask questions. It was to believe the worst. What kind of fiancé does that make me? I walked over to him and took his hands. They were cold and shaking. It makes you human, David. Emma is a master manipulator. She's been practicing on me for 32 years. She knew exactly which buttons to push to make you doubt everything. But a stronger man, a better husband, would have. Would have what? Been immune to psychological manipulation? David, she had photos, fake text messages, a whole elaborate story. She made it look real because she wanted it to be real. David looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. I almost lost you. But you didn't. We figured it out. We stopped her. Did we? Sarah, look around. It's 20 minutes past when our ceremony was supposed to start. Half our wedding guests probably think we've called it off. Your family is going to be devastated when they find out what Emma did. My family is going to be horrified that they were part of this mess. He was right. Even though we'd uncovered Emma's lies, the damage was done. Our perfect wedding day was ruined. But as I stood there in that room, holding my grandmother's wedding dress and looking at the man I loved more than anything in the world, I realized something important. The wedding wasn't what mattered. David was what mattered. Our love was what mattered. And Emma hadn't been able to destroy that, no matter how hard she tried. David Christopher Hayes, I said, smiling through my tears, do you want to marry me? More than anything in the world. Then let's go get married. Right now? Like this? I looked down at my silk bathrobe and laughed. Well, maybe give me 5 minutes to put on the dress. But yes, right now. In front of all our friends and family, who came here to celebrate our love. What about Emma? What about the mess she's created? We'll deal with Emma later. Right now, I just want to marry my best friend. David stood up and pulled me into his arms, and for the first time all day, everything felt right again. We were going to have our wedding. But first, we needed to figure out how to explain to 200 guests why the ceremony was starting 40 minutes late and why one of the bridesmaids had just fled the building in a groomsman's outfit. That conversation was going to be interesting. 1 year later, I'm sitting in my therapist's office, Dr. Elizabeth Martinez, talking about boundaries and healing. It's been a long journey to get here, but I finally understand that recovery isn't about forgetting what happened, it's about learning how to move forward without letting the past poison your future. How are you feeling about seeing Emma at your cousin's wedding next month? Dr. Martinez asks, her gentle voice pulling me back from my thoughts. I consider the question carefully. A year ago, the thought of being in the same room as my sister would have sent me into a panic attack. Today, it just makes me feel tired. Honestly, I feel nothing. Not anger, not hurt, not even pity anymore. Just nothing. Dr. Martinez nods approvingly. That's significant progress, Sarah. Tell me about your wedding day. How did you ultimately handle the situation with your guests? I smile, remembering. Despite Emma's best efforts to destroy everything, our wedding day ended up being perfect in ways I never could have planned. After Emma fled the country club in David's spare clothes, we had to face the music with our wedding guests. I put on my grandmother's dress, finally, rightfully, while David explained the situation to his groomsmen and our officiant. The hardest part was telling my parents what had happened. Mom was waiting in the bridal suite when I returned, her face a mask of confusion and worry. "Sarah, honey, where did Emma go? And why did the ceremony not start on time?" I sat her down and told her everything. The fake text messages, the lies about the pregnancy and engagement to Marcus, the manipulation, the dress inheritance that may or may not have been real. I'd never verified that will, and honestly didn't care anymore. Mom's face crumpled as I spoke. "Sarah, I had no idea. I thought Emma was just trying to help you have a perfect wedding. Mom, you've been enabling Emma's behavior our entire lives. You've taught her that she can take whatever she wants from me as long as she has a good excuse. That's not. I never meant." Mom started crying then, and I realized that she genuinely hadn't understood what she'd been doing all these years. "I know you didn't mean to hurt me," I said gently. "But intentions don't erase the impact. Emma almost destroyed my marriage before it even started, and you helped her do it by always making excuses for her behavior." It was the first time I'd ever confronted my mother directly about the favoritism, and it felt both terrifying and liberating. Dad, when he heard the story, was furious in a way I'd rarely seen. "That girl has gone too far this time," he said, pacing around the bridal suite. "I don't care what her excuses are. This is unforgivable." By the time we were ready to start the ceremony, an hour late, word had spread among our guests about what had happened. I was nervous about walking down that aisle, wondering what people would think, how they'd react. I shouldn't have worried. The moment the music started and I appeared at the back of the chapel on Dad's arm, the entire congregation erupted in applause. Not polite wedding applause, enthusiastic, supportive, "we're on your side" applause. David was waiting for me at the altar with tears streaming down his face and the biggest smile I'd ever seen. His vows, when the time came, were different from what we'd rehearsed. "Sarah Michelle Carter," he said, his voice strong and clear, "today has tested us in ways I never expected. But watching you handle betrayal with grace, lies with truth, and manipulation with integrity has only made me more certain that you're the woman I want to spend my life with. You are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and more worthy of love than you've ever been told." I was sobbing by the time he finished, and my own vows were a mess of tears and laughter. "David, 3 hours ago I thought I was losing everything that mattered to me. But standing here now, I realize that I already had everything that mattered. You didn't just choose to marry me today, you chose to fight for us, to believe in us, even when everything looked impossible. That's the kind of partner I want to be for you too." Our wedding reception was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Instead of the formal, elegant affair I'd planned, it became a celebration of truth, family loyalty, and genuine love. People came up to us all night to share their own stories of family betrayal and how they'd overcome it. David's grandmother pulled me aside at one point and said, "Honey, I've been to a lot of weddings in my 87 years, but I've never seen two people more meant for each other. What happened today only proved that your love is stronger than any lie." The best part was watching Marcus throughout the night. He kept apologizing to both David and me for Emma's behavior, even though he'd done nothing wrong. "I should have told you about her confession of feelings immediately," he said during the father-brother dance. "I thought I was being kind by keeping it private, but I see now that she was using my silence to build her fantasy." "Marcus," David replied, "you handled it exactly right. You were clear about your boundaries, and you weren't cruel about rejecting her. Emma's reaction was about Emma, not about you. It was healing, watching my new husband defend his brother's integrity while still holding Emma accountable for her choices. The only dark moment came when Mom approached me during the cake cutting. "Sarah, I think we should call Emma and tell her how the wedding turned out. She's probably worried." "No," I said firmly. "Mom, Emma made her choices today. She tried to destroy my marriage, she lied to everyone in this room, and she did it all because she was jealous. I'm not calling her, and I don't want you to either. But she's your sister." She stopped being my sister the moment she put on my wedding dress with the intention of ruining my life. Mom looked stricken, but Dad supported me. "Patricia, Sarah's right. Emma needs to face consequences for what she did. We can't keep cleaning up her messes." That was the beginning of a major shift in my family dynamic. Over the following months, Mom and Dad went to counseling together to work through their parenting patterns. Dad admitted that he'd often deferred to Mom's judgment about the girls, even when he disagreed, because he wanted to avoid conflict. Mom had to confront some hard truths about why she'd always favored Emma. In therapy, she revealed that Emma reminded her of her own younger sister, who had died in a car accident when they were teenagers. "I think I was trying to protect Emma from the world in a way I couldn't protect Amy," Mom confessed during one of our family sessions. "But I ended up hurting Sarah in the process." It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation that helped me understand the psychology behind decades of favoritism. Emma, meanwhile, disappeared for 3 months after the wedding. She moved to Seattle, got a job at a marketing firm, and went completely no contact with the family. Part of me worried about her, but Dr. Martinez helped me understand that concern and enabling are different things. "You can hope that Emma gets the help she needs," she explained, without taking responsibility for making sure she gets it. When Emma finally reached out, it was through a letter to our parents asking for money to cover therapy costs. She'd been seeing a psychologist and had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and narcissistic traits. "The therapist says I have abandonment issues and a fear of rejection that makes me sabotage relationships before people can leave me," the letter read. "I know that doesn't excuse what I did to Sarah, but it helps me understand why I did it." Mom wanted to send money immediately. Dad was more hesitant. I told them both that their decision about financial support was between them and Emma, but that I wasn't ready for any contact yet. "She needs to prove she's changed through actions, not just words and diagnoses," I said. "And that's going to take time." 6 months later, Emma sent me a letter directly. Not asking for anything, not making excuses, just acknowledging what she'd done and taking full responsibility. "Sarah," it read, "I know this letter can't undo the damage I caused, and I'm not writing it because I expect forgiveness. I'm writing it because you deserve to hear me say, without qualifications or explanations, that what I did was wrong. I was jealous, manipulative, and cruel. I tried to destroy your happiness because I couldn't create my own. That says everything about who I was as a person and nothing about who you are. You deserve all the love and joy in the world, and I'm genuinely glad that you found it with David, despite my best efforts to ruin it. I'm in therapy, I'm working on myself, and I hope that someday I'll be the kind of person who deserves to be called your sister again. But I understand if that day never comes. Love, Emma." I cried when I read it. Not because I was ready to reconcile, but because it was the first time Emma had ever acknowledged my feelings without making it about herself. David and I celebrated our first wedding anniversary by renewing our vows in a small ceremony with just our immediate family and closest friends. This time, there were no surprises, no drama, no stolen dresses or fake pregnancies. Just love. Marcus brought a date, a lovely woman named Jennifer whom he'd been seeing for 6 months. Mom and Dad looked happier and more connected than I'd seen them in years. David's parents kept telling anyone who would listen how proud they were of how we'd handled the crisis on our wedding day. And me? I wore a new dress, one I'd chosen myself, without input from anyone else, in a style that made me feel beautiful and confident and completely myself. Standing there with David, surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us, I realized something important. Emma's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been a gift. It had forced me to confront family patterns that had been hurting me for decades. It had shown me that David's love for me was strong enough to survive manipulation and lies. It had taught me that I could set boundaries and enforce them even with family. Most importantly, it had proven to me that I was worthy of fighting for, of standing up for myself, of demanding better. The little girl who had learned to accept crumbs of attention and make excuses for other people's behavior was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her value and wouldn't settle for less than she deserved. Dr. Martinez often asks me what I've learned from this experience, and my answer is always the same. I've learned that healing isn't about the other person changing or apologizing or making amends. Healing is about you changing your expectations, your boundaries, your relationship with yourself. Emma may never become the sister I always wanted her to be. Mom may never fully understand the impact of her favoritism. Some relationships may never be repaired. But I don't need them to be repaired to be happy. I have a marriage built on trust and genuine partnership. I have friends who celebrate my successes without trying to steal them. I have parents who are working to do better, even if they can't undo the past. I have a career that challenges me and makes me feel accomplished. Most importantly, I have a relationship with myself that isn't dependent on other people's approval or attention. As I prepare to see Emma at our cousin's wedding next month, the first time we'll be in the same room since my wedding day, I'm not nervous or angry. I'm curious. Curious to see who she's become in therapy. Curious to see if she's learned to find happiness that doesn't require taking it from someone else. Curious to see if we can be civil, maybe even friendly, without falling back into old patterns. But I'm not hoping for a miracle reconciliation or a tearful reunion. I've learned that hoping for other people to change is just another form of making your happiness dependent on someone else's choices. Instead, I'm hoping to continue being the person I've worked so hard to become, someone who can extend grace without sacrificing boundaries, someone who can forgive without forgetting, someone who can love herself enough to walk away from situations that don't serve her. Emma taught me, albeit unintentionally, that the only person responsible for my happiness is me. And for that lesson, painful as it was to learn, I'm genuinely grateful. David and I are talking about starting a family soon, and when we do, I know exactly what kind of parent I want to be. I want to be the kind of mother who celebrates each child's unique gifts without comparing them to their siblings. I want to create a home where love isn't conditional on performance or behavior. I want to raise children who know their worth isn't dependent on being better than someone else. I want to break the cycle that created Emma's jealousy and my people-pleasing. Because the best revenge against betrayal isn't getting even, it's living so well that the betrayal becomes irrelevant to your happiness. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So to anyone reading this who has experienced betrayal from family, friends, or loved ones, I want you to know, it's not about you. It's about them. Their inability to celebrate your happiness, their need to diminish your light, their jealousy of your success, that's their problem, not your flaw. You don't have to shrink yourself to make other people comfortable. You don't have to accept crumbs and call it love. You don't have to keep giving chances to people who keep proving they don't deserve them. You can set boundaries. You can walk away. You can choose yourself. And choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this? Have you had to cut toxic family members out of your life? Have you learned to love yourself enough to demand better treatment from the people around you? Share your story in the comments below, because healing happens faster when we realize we're not alone in our struggles. Remember, you are worthy of genuine love, authentic celebration, and relationships that add value to your life instead of subtracting from it. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not even family.